Yo cryptos! So today we're gonna talk about this thing. I'm pretty sure you all know what it is. It's called Bitcoin. This video will address both beginners and the one who know quite well Bitcoin, because I really try to raise interesting elements and to explain how Bitcoin works. I know, we're quite late because Bitcoin is kind of like cryptocurrency's father, and kind of like our father too, because crypto Analyse wouldn't exist without Bitcoin. So today we're gonna try to understand a little bit better how our daddy works. It all began in 2008 when someone, or more like a pseudonym called Satoshi Nakamoto, diffused in a mailing list a white paper entitled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. The mailing list it was diffused on belongs to a cypherpunk group. A cypherpunk group, it's a group that has a common value and a common manifesto, which is to defend privacy. But the cypherpunk who received the white paper, they didn't pay too much attention to it because there is a lot of things that circulate in this group, a lot of novelties, a lot of new ideas, and yeah, Bitcoin was ignored. But it didn't stop Satoshi Nakamoto to work on this project. And in 2009, a live version, so it's kind of like a usable version of Bitcoin, was published. It was in January 2009, to be more specific, it was the 3rd of January 2009 that the Genesis block was created. The Genesis block is kind of like the first block ever created on the blockchain. In this block, there is, funny enough, element. A text was integrated into what's called the Coinbase, and this text directly refers to an article published on the Times in the 3rd of January 2009, also following the subprime crisis, the financial crisis of 2008. The article talked about a possible bailout of England banks by the Chancellor Deputy of Checkbooks, the guy who's in charge of the treasury of the England government. And it's quite funny because Bitcoin arrived just after the subprime crisis, and in the Genesis block there is a direct reference to this crisis because they could have put any other article of the day, but they choose to put this one who is talking about banks and about this crisis. You may already know it, but we don't have any idea of the identity of Bitcoin creators. Like, Satoshi Nakamoto is only a pseudonym, it could be anybody. There are 3 main suspicions for many different reasons, and I'm gonna present you the 3 because I think it's quite interesting. The first one is Nick Sabat, because long before 2008, long before the release of the white paper, he worked on a system he created that was called BitGold. And BitGold has a freaking lot of similarities with Bitcoin. The second one is Wei Day. He's a cryptographer, and he worked long before also on a system that he created that incorporates a proof of work, and it's really the premises of what we use today in Bitcoin. The third person is Alfinio, because he also worked on a system that is called Hashcash, and that incorporates a proof of work, and it's really looking a lot like what we have today in Bitcoin. Bitcoin goals are clear. They want to do exactly what other banks are doing, but without having to have a trust system, without having to trust institution. It directly goes through a decentralized network. We have explained this in another video. It's really clear, it's really animated, and it explains how Bitcoin works. It goes a little bit in depth, and I really advise you to watch it if you don't quite understand how Bitcoin works. But I'll try to explain the basics now. So Bitcoin, it's all about a proof of work to generate a consensus. The principle of proof of work is to put miners in competition for them to discover new blocks. And a block is what involves transactions, and in this case it's transactions, exchanges of value, exchanges of Bitcoin tokens. And yeah, miners, they are competing to find new blocks before the other one. But why? Why are they competing? Well, it's quite simple. It's really for the reward they get when they find a new block. Because a block can forcibly be found by only one miner. This competition is really a random game, but with the probability to find a new block proportional to the computing power of a miner. So a miner, a weak equipment, could find a new block, but it's just less probable when you have other miners who have like a lot of computing powers. And that's why right now we're looking at a lot of mining farms regrouping a lot of computing power, so they can like get a lot of rewards because they find a lot of new blocks. And a block is found each 10 minutes or so, and those 10 minutes depend on the calculation of the difficulty, the probability to find a new block, and it's calculated to make sure that we find a new block every 10 or so minutes. So it may be that you find a block after 5 minutes, but it also may be that you find a block after 50 minutes. Like, it can happen. I don't know if it has happened yet, but it can happen. And a transaction is considered confirmed after 6 blocks, so 60 minutes, because if we consider that a block is roughly 10 minutes. Nowadays, there's the firm behind Bitcoin. It's called Blockstream. They didn't create it, Bitcoin, but they participate actively in Bitcoin. Like, they finances a lot of projects related to Bitcoin, and other projects that are not related to Bitcoin also, like the project on W3C. And did you know that we can program, that we can develop, and that we can create small contract with Bitcoin? This is something that we don't mention enough for me about Bitcoin, but you can develop through its scripting system that use something that is called the OP code. And yeah, it allows you, when you make a transaction, to do things like calculations, for example, like ready to develop, to program. And beside, when you send a transaction, there is a code written by the miners. So yeah, there is a code in every transaction. And I see you coming, like, if we can do smart contract with Bitcoin, what is Ethereum for? Bitcoin isn't optimized for smart contract. It's not complete Turing. To understand what it is, it means that it doesn't do loop, like it can't repeat a function. It's for its security measures. And Ethereum, it really brings along something that can allow you to do smart contract, because it has a language that is called complete Turing. But there is a lot of things growing around Bitcoin. I'm thinking about Rootstock. So Rootstock is not a project that was made on Bitcoin, but it's a project that was made for Bitcoin. Like Rootstocks, there is two things that is allowed by Rootstock. First is what's called the two-way peg, and it allows you to, allows you from Bitcoin to exchange Bitcoin against other cryptocurrencies really similar to Bitcoin. For example, exchanging Bitcoin against Litecoin without having to use an exchange like Kraken, for example. And the second thing is that you can create smart contract on Bitcoin thanks to Rootstock. So today Rootstock is in test, but it's really something that we should see happen in 2018, but surely in 2019. There is another project that is called the Lightning Network. To understand this, you have to understand that actually you can make 7 transactions per second on Bitcoin. But for example, Visa runs at 2,000 transactions per second. So clearly Bitcoin is still far from the cash like Visa that allows you to make exchange of values really, really quickly. But the Lightning Network can solve a little bit this problem about slowness of Bitcoin through a quite complicated system that I won't explain here, but that allows you to create payment channels so you can exchange value really quickly. And we come back to Blockstream, because Blockstream finances the Lightning Network's project. In mid-January, Blockstream launched hubs. Hubs are payment channel to use the Lightning Network in full use, like in live. But it was said that it was just a test. But what it means is that like it's really taking its place on the market, and that in current 2018, I think, yeah, we should really see it explode. Especially since some developers are having fun to like creating new tools around that. I'm thinking about a French company called A5. For the pros and the cons, I'll start with the pros. So first of all, the big benefit of Bitcoin is that in 9 years of existence, there is only one inherent bug in the code. Like it was found by someone called like Jeff Garzik. He wanted to create the SegWit 2x that was really controversial. Well, he was doing a transaction and like he looked at it and he was like, it's a freaking huge amount. Like it was a transaction with a really high amount, a really high value. So yeah, the bug was corrected. Yeah, it was the only flaw that has been found. It was in 2010. This flaw has been corrected, and it's really incredible. Like it's really important because in 9 years there weren't any other inherent bug in the code, and there is like 20 million users today of Bitcoin, so it's huge. The second advantage of Bitcoin is the reputation. Like it's known. It has a reputation, it's recognized. And why is that so important? It's important because there is a lot of projects, a lot of people that are working on it. I'm thinking about Rootstock, but I'm also thinking about the Lightning Network and all those. Like there are a lot of even like miners who like to work on it, and there is developers who like to create their own code to use on Bitcoin, and it's really working to develop Bitcoin, and it's great. It's really great. And a third advantage for me, it depends on opinions, but for me it's really an advantage, it's that it has no creator. And it's really great because everybody starts with the same thing, and you can offer things at the same value, and everybody is at the same place on the market. But it can also be a disadvantage, and I will come back to it in disadvantage when I will be talking about governance. But first, coffee break. Okay, the first disadvantage of Bitcoin is that it has no promotion. Like they're not putting a lot of effort in the marketing campaign or communication campaign. There is Blockstream who is also working on it, but they're not really like doing a lot for the campaign, for the communication campaign. While there is other projects like EOS that are really putting a lot into these things because they know that it works. Yeah, if a person likes Bitcoin, well, he promotes Bitcoin. If he doesn't like it, he doesn't promote it. But yeah, there is no real marketing campaign. The second disadvantage is the problem of governance, but like we talked about it when we talked about Cardano, who is trying to work on this governance problem. Yeah, when someone has a proposal for Bitcoin, he writes a BIP, like Bitcoin improvement proposal, and it's sent, and then it's voted, like do we accept it, do we validate it or not. But it's not directly on Bitcoin, it's not made on Bitcoin. You have to send it either to a mailing list about development for Bitcoin or on a website like GitHub and things like that. But it just took a lot of times. The thing is validated or not during discussions, and it's not really implemented into Bitcoin. So it takes a huge amount of time. It's really long. Yeah, it's really long. And the third disadvantage is that Bitcoin is becoming centralized because for miners, for example, it used a lot of electricity consumption. It has a cost, and some countries has, low electricity cost. And so as time goes by, since 2009 and like the evolution, Well, miners, they really settled in China because it's really low in terms of cost. And we have a huge concentration of miners in China, but we also have a huge amount of actors. Actors are the ones who participate in the transaction, in the distribution of Bitcoin transaction. But there is no reward for being an actor. Like, for example, I use Bitcoin, but I'm not an actor because there is no reward. There is nothing. It takes power on my computer because my computer has to run and to broadcast everything that happens on the Bitcoin. Basically, it must listen to what circulates within Bitcoin, and in addition, you have to download the blockchain, which is like 160 gigabyte, but like not everyone has this space on their hard drive, and it's not remunerated. There isn't any reward. So yeah, there is a loss in interest in being an actor in Bitcoin because of this. So that was all for Bitcoin. Do not forget to like, do not forget to subscribe if you haven't done it before. And well, that was all for today on Crypto Analyze.